This is how to make rosemary olive focaccia. First, you will start by using an active sourdough starter. An active starter will be ready when it's bubbly. To test if it's ready, you can add a spoonful to a cup of water, and if it floats, it's active. Next, chop up rosemary and olives. I am using Kalamata olives, but you can use any olives. Next, prepare 4 cups of bread flour. I am spooning it into the measuring cup instead of dipping the cup into the flour. This gives a more accurate measurement. You can also weigh out 512 grams of flour for an even more accurate measurement. When you have 4 cups, you can set it aside for the dough. Next, prepare your dough. I'm adding a half cup or 50 to 100 grams of sourdough starter, 1 3/4 cup or 430 to 440 grams of room temperature water, and 10 grams or 2.5 teaspoons of kosher salt, and mixing everything together until roughly combined. Then, slowly add in your bread flour. I'm adding in half and stirring to combine before adding the rest. Make sure you use the biggest bowl you have so that you don't lose any dough. The bowl I'm using is a little bit too small, but it's the biggest that I have. Continue stirring until everything is combined, and then you can add the second half of the flour. The more flour you add, the harder it'll be to stir, but make sure you continue stirring until everything is combined and use your hands if you need to. This is what it looks like from the top, so as you can see, things are slowly getting more combined. Add the chopped olives and rosemary. Then you can stir everything together. It's easiest to kind of fold everything in with a spoon, but you can also use your hands if needed. The dough at this point should be pretty sticky. As you can see, it's sticking to the spoon a little bit and to the sides. I'm transferring my dough here to a clear bowl so that it's easier to see when it rises. Make sure the bowl you transfer it to is large enough to accommodate the rise. It's going to about double in size, so make sure you prepare for that. Next, this is the fun part. Fold your dough over itself several times by grabbing the side and pulling it into the center. Turn your bowl and repeat until all sides have been folded 1 or 2 times. This folding helps develop the gluten in the bread and add some of those nice air bubbles that sourdough has. The bread will feel like it's getting stronger each time you fold, and this is what should happen. Finally, add 2 tablespoons of oil to the top and coat the top of the dough. Cover your dough and let it sit at room temperature for 8 to 18 hours, or however long it takes for the dough to just about double in size. I'm covering mine with a towel. This is the bulk fermentation process, where we let the dough sit and allow the yeast to develop the dough a little bit more. I left mine for about 12 hours overnight. After this, your dough should have doubled in size. As you can see, mine has just about doubled, and there are bubbles developing on the top and on the sides. Next, spray a 9 by 13 inch baking pan. I don't have one, so I'm going to use 2 8 by 8 pans, which is fine. Add some olive oil as well and make sure it gets to the sides of the pans. Next, using a similar technique to the initial fold, deflate the dough by pulling the sides to the center. After the bulk fermentation, focaccia dough gets deflated to prevent it from rising since it's a flatter bread. Next, you'll turn the dough out into the pan with the olive oil. If you're using 2 pans, you can cut your dough in half here, ideally with a pastry scraper, but use what you have. I don't have a pastry scraper, so I am using a pizza cutter, which works just fine. I'm going to keep one part of the dough in the pan and then separate the other part and put it into a different prepared pan. Next, you'll do one final fold. Fold once on each side into a rough rectangle. Then, flip the dough mass over so the seams are down. After you flip the dough seam side down, you'll be left with a smooth mass of dough. Add olive oil to the top of the dough. Let this sit uncovered at room temperature for 4 to 6 hours to ferment until it's puffy and larger in size. After the 4 to 6 hours, preheat your oven to 425 degrees. With oiled hands, dimple the dough by sticking your fingers into it and pushing the dough to the pan's edges. I went over the whole loaf twice. This further deflates the dough so that it doesn't fully rise but still allows for bubbles to develop. Top the bread with flaky sea salt to your liking. Next, bake the bread for around 25 minutes or until the whole thing looks golden brown. Finally, cut your bread and enjoy.